And let me go ahead and screen share our slides for today. So today's webinar is focusing on the Creates Literacy project. Today's date is Wednesday, June 15th. We are recording this to watch for folks at a later time who are not able to join us in person today. And we appreciate everyone who is able to be here to learn more about our awesome project. So I'm Elena Greenberg. I'm the Senior Program Coordinator with WISE. WISE is the Women in Science and Engineering program housed at the University of Arizona. The Creates Literacy Partnership is collaborative between the Arizona Project WET, WISE, and it is funded by the Stalker Foundation. So we are going to get started with a little bit of order of events. And we have a couple other people here who I want to quickly introduce. I'm going to have them talk a little bit more about themselves. We have Emily and Amy. Emily is going to be kind of our in charge of the chat. So if you have any questions, I am not looking at the chat throughout this call, but Emily can answer those as we go. Similarly, if you have questions that are really specific for educators who are participants in our project, Amy can answer those as we go. Today, we're going to start with some introductions. We're going to do a little bit of an overview of the Creates Literacy project, talking about the internship experience for our University of Arizona students, as well as the educator experience for our participants. We will have some impact and outcome slides, as well as time at the end for question and answers. So Emily, if you'd like to start by introducing yourself, that'd be great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Sizeski. I was a student intern on this project this semester, and I'm a senior at the University of Arizona, majoring in psychology and environmental studies. And I was an intern with the Biodiversity Project in fall of 2021. And throughout this past semester, I've been working on the Creates Literacy project as a student worker.
Fantastic. And I'll pass the mic off to Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Flores. I had been with TUSD for 10 years, and this last school year I was working with the Gifted and Talented Education Department, which let me branch out to quite a few schools. It's really exciting. And I have specialized in my time as an educator in ecology and school garden curriculum. And I've worked at the same site, Drachman Montessori, for 10 years.
Thank you so much, Amy. And to quickly introduce myself, my name is Elena. I'm the Senior Program Coordinator at WISE. I run 3 different programs at WISE, all outreach programs to K through 12 students. One of those is the Creates Literacy project, which is why you all are here to learn more about this. The Creates Literacy project is a stem off of the Biodiversity project, which is our environmental science outreach project housed within WISE. The Biodiversity project focuses on diversifying the environmental science pipeline into the workforce. So we really focus on Title I schools here within Metro Tucson and developing hands-on, place-based, and engaging curriculum that's culturally relevant for our student population here. I also run the Imagine Your STEM Future program, which focuses on high school girls here within Tucson, connecting them with mentors in the field to focus on female empowerment, as well as STEM development with their STEM identity and empowerment within the field as well. I work across a lot of our program partners, donors, and supporters, facilitating workshops, but also working really closely with our University of Arizona awesome students and doing a little bit of program evaluation and visibility work. So the Biodiversity Project slogan is building the next generation of environmental leaders, stewards, committed to diversity. The Biodiversity Project partnered up with the Recharge the Rain project, which is housed within Arizona Project WET. The Recharge the Rain project was established in partnership with Arizona Project WET as well as the Watershed Management Group in 2017. It was funded by a NOAA grant. And worked with about 27 teachers across 16 different schools to focus on curriculum development within the climate literacy, as well as engineering design of rainwater harvesting systems and engaging students in citizen science work. So the Biodiversity Project collaborated with Recharge the Rain to apply for a grant from the Stalker Foundation, which is where the Creates Literacy project was developed. So these 2 programs, really, we focused on the success of these 2 programs and how we could combine these successes to create the Creates Literacy project and focus our efforts on Tucson educators within the local Tucson system. The background behind why we wanted to get this project started is to focus on the education equity gap. So a lot of you may be familiar with the statistics already, but around 31% of fourth graders here in Arizona are reading either at or above proficiency levels. And we see these numbers decrease as students continue along the education pipeline. So by eighth grade, only 28% of eighth graders are at or above proficiency level. Similarly, about 25% of eighth graders are at or above proficiency in regards to science. And we see these really highlighted disparities within racial and ethnic as well as socioeconomic disparities. Specifically, we see this within our Black, Latinx, and lower income students here within Arizona. They are testing at significantly lower rates than their white and higher income counterparts. And despite many efforts across the state to increase proficiency levels on standardized testing, we really see these inequities play out across both racial and socioeconomic lines. And we can see at the bottom here, I just wanted to point out that we can see this play out at the National School Lunch Program, where folks who are eligible for the free and reduced price lunches are only scoring at about 18%, compared to folks who are non-eligible at 46%. So our vision for this project is to draw on the successes of these two programs, the Biodiversity Project as well as the Recharge the Rain Project, to combine our interdisciplinary approaches to really have a STEAM lens to impact students at a positive level across different competencies, so across both literacy as well as science. And the Creates Literacy Project, our goal is to really increase access to both culturally responsive as well as place-based STEAM efforts to build their competencies in critical thinking, science communication, as well as creative communication technologies. So we see this play out we have 5 goals throughout our program. The first is really to increase student competencies as well as their confidence in both science and reading, and especially by expanding marginalized student access to culturally responsive and integrated science and literacy curriculum. Secondly, our goal is to improve overall literacy by integrating these reading to learn tools into already existing science curriculum. Thirdly, inspiring students to be confident science communicators using these creative communication tools that we know work within the science curriculum. Empowering teachers to build teacher competencies and confidence in inquiry-based as well as culturally responsive science education. And we do this through integration of the University of Arizona students who are already trained in culturally responsive pedagogy. And lastly, to create a professional learning community of K-12 educators, UAZ staff and faculty and students, as well as local experts who are dedicated to this focus and the integration of science and literacy curriculum. And our strategy is to combine the efforts of K-12 educators through professional development workshop, as well as targeting U-Arizona intern support to create more impactful learning environments, as well as greater student outcomes. So our professional development cohort, this was our pilot year of the Creates Literacy Project, involves 6 educators across several different school districts here in Tucson. The 75% of these educators are focusing at Title I schools, and they reach specifically demographics that we were very interested in doing outreach to, so marginalized students and specifically Black and Brown students here within Tucson. These educators focused and they did 10 hours of professional development work. This was during a hybrid model. So this was, during the peak of COVID actually earlier this spring, where we had a hybrid model. They did a lot of work asynchronously. We had some live workshops online, as well as in March, we were able to gather together and do an in-person workshop together. The U-Arizona students who supported this program, we had 3 students total. All of these students were alumni from the Biodiversity Project internship. So these students had previously completed at least a semester-long internship with our program, where they had been trained on culturally responsive, hands-on, and place-based curriculum development. And their role within our program was really to support teachers. They did a lot behind the scenes, and they also did a lot at the school sites to support teachers in implementing the modules that these folks created. And our outcome is really to see this hands-on place-based modules built into already existing science lessons. We do have an example of these modules up on our website if you're curious about checking this out. And by the end of this week, we'll have all of the modules up on our website that are freely available for educators to use, or for anyone really here within Tucson who's working with youth who is interested in integrating both literacy and science education. The professional development workshops focused on 6 different literacy development strategies. These strategies were taken from the American Museum of Natural History. The 4 communication tools that we focused on were Nature's Notebook, ArcGIS Story Maps, Adobe Spark, which is now called Adobe Express, which is a form of environmental storytelling, as well as we had environmental storytelling as a tool, which was guided by an expert in environmental storytelling here in Northern Arizona, who was able to guide us through this workshop. All of these professional development strategies were really aiming for educators to build the skills necessary to feel comfortable and confident as educators integrating literacy into their already existing science units, while using creative communication as a means for their students to explore inquiry-based education and pedagogy. So the folks who attended our professional development training were then tasked with doing module development. What we required from educators in our program is to have at least 1 literacy development and 1 creative communication tool, and to build it into something that already exists so that they don't have to double up on the work. So they're using a science unit that they're already planning on teaching to their students and adding in the integrated literacy development aspect of their lesson. They also were asked to do an assessment of literacy development so that we could have an idea of how impactful this kind of approach, this kind of programming was for their students, and if this is something that works for them that we can see after this pilot year building on for the future. So I'm going to pass the mic off now to Emily to speak a little bit about her experience.
Okay, so at the start of the semester on the intern side, we did a lot of work on the back end, like the module preparation for the professional development workshop and getting everything set up in our shared Google folders so that the partner teachers were able to readily access all the materials and like links we're providing them and have a place where they could share with us their different like lessons throughout the semester. And we also became well-versed in the creative communication technologies that were being used in the project, just so we were able to support the students and the teachers if they had any questions come up as they were also learning how to use it. And I think the most fun aspect for me about this whole project was being able to go into the classrooms and help support them with the implementation of these lessons. And it was really cool to see how each teacher was interpreting the different literacy strategies and technologies and how the students were responding to that. And I think I got a lot out of being able to work one-on-one with the students and the teachers. And it taught me a lot about how to go about like explaining these somewhat complex technologies that I hadn't even learned till I got to college. And it was really cool to see that these young kids are being exposed to things like this at a really young age. And it was also awesome to be able to apply all the knowledge I've gained throughout my college experience about the science topics they were learning about. And it was, I think, a really good opportunity for me to increase my knowledge on literacy strategies and creative communication technologies. And I feel like I have a better grasp of these things. And I was able to build upon a lot of my professional skills that I had gained throughout the biodiversity project and continuing to now, like professional writing, science communication, and public speaking. And I was just really excited to do more work within the Tucson community here, being able to work with local students. And I think it was really awesome to see how this project was implemented in each of the schools we worked with.
Thanks so much, Emily. And now I'm going to hand it over to Amy, who can speak from the educator's perspective on her participation in the Creates Literacy project.
Thanks, Elena. Yeah, so just to get started, like Elena was saying, we had some strategies to choose from. And so the first category I looked at was environmental storytelling. was really excited to see my friend Jessie. Jessie Rack led the strategy, and she used to work and live in Tucson. So it was exciting to see her share. So I've actually seen her teach, and she really is passionate about what she's teaching, and it's sort of infectious. She loves science, and it makes you love science. So it was really neat to see her talk about it and say that environmental storytelling is the art of making people care. And so I chose that idea to run with, and I'm part of a group of educators that works with the U of A. It's called Green Academy. We teach professional developments around like having to do with school gardens. So what kind of curriculum fits with school gardens and how is that integrated? And so we had a theme coming up of flowers, and I thought, okay, I definitely feel like it can make people care about flowers. And so it was nice to adjust a unit that I had sort of been thinking about, but focus it more on what story are we telling and how can I get students to care about it. So I chose some pictures that the students drew after, because I think that by sharing my passion about flowers and kind of being joyful about it, to be honest, they do make me happy. And so you can see this is sort of at the end, but the pictures I got back and how the students reacted, I really felt like they truly, truly cared. And the teacher I chose to work with, since this wasn't in my own classroom, I do travel to different schools and generally only have students for about 90 minutes at a time. So I chose a school at CE Rose, a teacher at CE Rose, who already had a flower project. She wanted to plant a small flower garden with students. So I thought, oh my goodness, we can just tie this into a lovely unit. And so she was really excited and passionate about it too. So here is some examples of this student work. So when I got over to CE Rose, we had all of these flowers, and we brought a wonderful intern, Liz Beck, who helped, and we wanted to teach a Montessori botany lesson. So that focuses on vocabulary. And to learn more about vocabulary instruction, we had some wonderful materials that I think Emily might have helped get together for us. And so there was a video from the American Museum of Natural History on how to do vocabulary instruction. And combined with what Maria Montessori, who was a scientist, what she thought of how to introduce vocabulary, I really felt like I had an amazing idea how to present this. So the strategies I learned from the Natural History Museum was that you really want to chunk information. For really young students, 3 to 5 new terms is enough. Anything more than that, and it's really hard to grasp, and it might feel too challenging, and they'll focus on memorizing and not the conversations that can be had using the new vocabulary. And I also learned it's important to spread out the introduction of new terms. You can preload and introduce a few terms before the lesson. And also, what was really amazing, teachers always love when you learn that you can leave stuff out. There was a really nice part of the video that shared with us that if in the context you're going to find out what the vocabulary means, or a word like petals that maybe most students have heard, not to even worry about it, and to preload a couple of things that they'll need, teach 3 to 5 vocabulary words during the lesson, and leave a few out that they will grasp on their own. So that's how we approached this vocabulary lesson. Thanks, Elena. This is a picture I wanted to share of some students who were really having a great time. So they dissected a flower to learn the different names of its parts. And this type of lesson, I told them they were in a botany lesson. And they really connected with it. They had no idea that the crown of petals is called the corolla, that the flower had names for each of its parts. I think they do hear the term stem or petal, but you don't really think about all of the parts. And then what do they do? And so in just finding out there's a calyx on a flower and why? Well, what does that do? So it was really amazing to have discussions about the parts and what they do. And also the students brought another aspect to it that I wasn't expecting. They had some motivational quotes and different things that they shared. And so one of the students at this table told me that her favorite thing about flowers is that even if they get stepped on, they'll grow back, and so will you. And I thought, wow, that's amazing to make those type of connections with what you're working with. Here's another thing about kind of summarizing the whole situation. So I think when I looked back on this lesson and mini unit, what went best was that the teacher and I, and in the bottom picture, she's in pink, and I'm over there, I'm like a flannel. But we worked together and went through the lesson ahead of time. So I taught the lesson to a group of teachers in a Green Academy session we named Spring Bloom. And so she went through it as a student, which I think was excellent because having the experience of a student and having to wait your turn and having to stay seated or not quite sure where the lesson is going or what you're supposed to do was wonderful because that lets you know what questions will be coming from your students, how your students will feel during the lesson, and what parts were really cool. So she had things that she liked about the lesson that she had prepped ahead of time and maybe spent more time on. And then we were very, very engaged. And we also had at the Green Academy, our intern, Liz Beth. So the three of us had run through the whole lesson together ahead of time. We're excited, had chatted a couple of things we wanted to do. So I thought it ran very, very smoothly, so smoothly. And we made such a beautiful smell and commotion with all the flowers that it attracted the principal and several other either teaching assistants or monitors or free people at the school. And so then they came in to check it out as well, which was lovely. The only thing that didn't work was this very tight space, which is out of our control, lots of students, but at the same time, we could get students up and moving anyway. So I think it would be good to, at the end, add a gallery walk so everyone can check everything out. And maybe some music, a really fun flower song, because I think that what I learned was that the most important part wasn't that they memorized the terms, not that they know what a stamen is or a corolla, but that they loved flowers and they cared about the effect flowers have on the environment and their part in that. So I really felt like that's a reason you add some music and some fun and those type of things. So I know I'm talking a lot. I just really loved it. Oh, well, and I'm glad that I shared how much I loved it. Here's how much the students loved it. So I think when we talk about impact, I can share how it impacted myself and how I felt about the lesson and where I would like to continue or change it. But for how it impacted the students, I would not want to share that for them. So I just use their exact words. So I'll just be quiet for a minute and we can sort of read through these and then I'll share some main points. I even included their spelling mistakes, just so you could see these really are their exact words. And we all have spell check. And I think when we get caught up on grammar or spelling, we're not giving them the time to say what they want to say. And it really matters how students share their learning. And the most important thing is their feelings behind it, what their big picture, what they're trying to say. So just not getting hung up on little things. And so I did get some thank you cards with pictures of flowers with every part labeled, which was wonderful. But most important to me were those conversations they had. Things like, now I know that bees just drop pollen and how it makes more flowers, and also what holds a flower together. And I know that there are thousands of flowers to see. Just the excitement of students wanting to see more flowers and thinking what flowers attract what insects. And that they wanted to plant flowers. They also really, really wanted me to come back. They wanted to, not to just hang out, of course, they wanted to learn more. And for me, that's the ultimate goal. Students saying they want to learn more, well, that's it then, we've won. So this was a lot of the impact that these students felt. And I think Elena is going to share some more student impacts with us.
Thanks so much, Amy. Yeah, and I love looking at these student quotes, and you could really see the excitement kind of jumping out of their words as they're describing how much it meant to them to be able to do this flower lesson with you all. So I will talk a little bit about the overarching Creates Literacy project impact that we saw during our pilot year. And I really want to showcase 3 examples that stand apart from others when we're looking at impact and showcase them here to you all. So the first is that the Creates Literacy project inspired confident science communicators. And I also am going to pull a quote from one of our Creates Literacy project partner teachers, who says that the students loved working with the university students on the technology piece. It is a real treat for my students to do complicated technology pieces. I'm thankful for this program that matched me up with students from the University of Arizona. Similarly, students also improved their literacy development. When we're looking at data from the teachers that we assessed, 100% of teachers indicated that the module was successful at fostering literacy development among their students. And here's another quote that you can read if you'd like about the impact of fostering literacy development through these already existing science lessons. Similarly, the Creates Literacy project also created a professional learning community. So when we're surveying these teachers, 100% said that the Creates Literacy project was a good use of their time, and it was also useful for their teaching. So they were able to take things that they learned, these skills, whether it's around literacy development strategies, or it's around these creative communication technologies or tools, or the integration of all 3 of these things, and use it within their classroom teaching. And so just to pull a little bit more from our surveyed participants, when asked how well they thought that this module went, this module that they taught to their students that combined literacy and science education, overwhelmingly, teachers said that it went either well, very well, or excellent. Also, when they're asked, how likely are they to implement this sort of thing in the future, 100% so that they are likely to do it again, whether they're somewhat likely or extremely likely. Educators also indicate that participation increased their confidence in integrating literacy and creative communication technologies into their science lessons. And this was a goal of the the Creates Literacy project that we were really interested in looking at. And so I think this is a really compelling statistic that I wanted to bring into this webinar, is that the Creates Literacy project really increased these educators' confidence in integrating these sorts of technologies, as well as integrating literacy development into their teaching. And a lot of these educators see themselves using these tools and using what they learned from this project going forward. Educators also indicate that participation helped them learn new things and it benefited their students. So these educators did learn new things, whether it's regarding the literacy strategies or the creative communication tools. But I think what is really impactful is knowing that it did benefit the students who are participants in these lessons, and they will continue to use these things and build upon them as they're going forward into the next academic year. And so for us moving forward with the overall impact, we know that the Creates Literacy project improves student science competencies. The educators who were participants in this pilot year found the modules to be more successful than other science activities that they do with their students. The educators also found that they developed a lot of empowerment around how to teach students and how to integrate both literacy and science. And lastly, The educators also increased access for their students to both culturally relevant as well as place-based programming. So the educators in our program noted the really high engagement levels during the modules due to the student excitement, which I think was really well demonstrated by Amy, and applied their understanding of the science content as well. And this last quote I want to read here at the bottom says, I saw a distinct change in motivation during this activity with students. They were truly able to take ownership of their work. And this is quoted by a partner teacher in our program from this past spring. And we really see this throughout all of the various modules that the educators implemented in the schools, ranging from doing a flower dissection, such as what Amy did, and a botany lesson around that, to other educators in our program who had their students create TikTok videos about the importance of bat conservation within the Sonoran Desert. So there's all sorts of thematic approaches that educators took within how to develop a module that integrated, environmental science as well as literacy development. But also it just, it really showed that it does increase their students' access, their understanding, and their motivation to participate in science content. And this is something that we see as a success moving forward, and we would love to continue using and moving forward from our pilot year with. So those are all of the things that I wanted to highlight as far as the impact and outcomes of this program. I think another really awesome thing about doing a webinar is that we can have the opportunity to do Q&A. So I am going to stop sharing here and see if we have any questions from the audience regarding the Creates Literacy project and if we can answer those. Feel free, you can unmute yourself. You can also type in the chat, we can answer those. And if there aren't any questions today, that's totally fine. I'm going to go ahead and put my contact information up on the screen. So this is me. You can always email me with any questions about the Creates Literacy project or WISE in general. I'm happy to answer those. Of course, Amy and Emily, I'm sure would be happy to answer your questions if you have more specific questions about participation and the experience within this project. So please feel free to reach out at any time. We're happy to talk more about this project and where we see ourselves going forward. I really appreciate everyone being here for this webinar. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to learn more about our program, and we hope to stay in touch going forward. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Elena. This was an amazing experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Amber. The lesson I taught was actually easily adapted for younger grades. And so I did leave some materials at the school. However, the project did focus, I think, on 3rd through 8th grade, but these lessons that I saw, the TikTok videos, I don't think maybe students could go on TikTok, but all of the ideas and strategies could be used for younger grades. I definitely believe that. I hope that answers that. Thanks for joining us, Amber.
Awesome.